I am here with Sekou Brown. This man is an absolute writing phenom, whether or not, you guys know it or not. I've already read through, one of his stories, and he even sent me to one of his articles that he has written because he cares a lot about, believe it or not, the Christian dating space, right? So he does lean towards that. That's where his stories lean. And I'm just gonna let you know, I mean, I was blown away, and I am a writer. And so, I was looking at his writing, and I was honestly a little jealous because I was like, yo, my stuff don't flow like this. So I was kind of like taken aback. I really was taken aback, but can't be jealous out here, on the internet and trying to do things to help and network. But I really was kind of blown away by, his work. And so, me and him had talked before about him coming on here and for us to have some really great conversations. So, in this particular part of the conversation, I wanted to go into, some of the work that he's doing. But before we do that, I just want to give him, 60 seconds to, kind of introduce himself to the community.
Right. What's up, family? First of all, thanks for the warm welcome, man. I'm gonna give you your flowers here in a second after my intro. But Sekou Brown, I am a filmmaker, and an indie filmmaker at that. So with that, you wear many hats. So of course, I write, produce, I edit. I'll do a food run. I'll do the lights. You end up just wearing many hats. But at my core, I am a storyteller. I love to unpack life and particularly explore taboo topics with my writing, mirrored that with my faith, right? So I am a man of God. A vast majority of my work, particularly on the narrative side, has been telling stories about Black Christians. So um mostly romantic dramas, romantic comedies kind of blur that line. But yeah, and just here recently, I kicked off a newsletter, a storytelling newsletter, specifically at aimed to explore stories about Christian dating, right? So not only stories, as you mentioned, I'm going to be doing some nonfiction kind of column, op-ed type pieces on Christian dating as a whole, man. So I'm excited. But that's a little bit about me. But I do want to give you your flowers because, of course, as a writer, part of people get blown away by the words, but a lot of it is research, right? You gotta not only do your basic research, whether it's history or topics, you know what I mean? But you also gotta, research the pulse of culture, right? Which, is where I give you your flowers, man. You're one of the ones I've kind of followed and admired, from a distance. I'm glad we was able to kind of connect last year. But man, you're really doing some great work out here helping Christian singles, right? Like, a little bit about my origin story. Like I've done my work in ministry has primarily been with youth and young adults. And when you work with that group as they begin to age, inevitably you gotta tackle this behemoth of a topic when it comes to finding someone, right? And many people out there, but like your voice, I think, is really a voice of reason, and a voice that's challenging the status quo as in church as a whole, man, and as well as giving practical advice, man. So if you don't hear from nobody else, I'm a married man, and I just listen and just make sure I'm like, well, man, I got to have some game to give back to folks. But here recently, some of your wisdom is even sneaking into my writing, but we'll get into that as well. So definitely, like I said, I want to give you your flowers. They say when you're friends with a writer, be careful because whatever they hear about you might end up in a in one of the things they write. So in a very literal sense, you've been somebody I've consumed, content I've consumed. So man, you're doing a great job.
No, I appreciate that. I definitely appreciate that. And I'm thankful that you talked about you being married, because that is one of the things that I definitely was gonna, ask. I mean, I already knew the answer, but just for the people at home, because for a lot of people that that watch, it's really important that we bring people on here that number one lean toward marriage. Right now, people can say whatever they want to say. They can say society, they can say the enemy, they can say whatever, but there's definitely a move to get people to stop getting married, to stop caring about relationships. Everybody's saying all women are evil or all men are evil. And I think we got to get away from that narrative. And there's so much power in what we speak and what we believe, in our own lives. And so, to me, for you to come on, you being married, I had a couple other people come on to being married. And I think for me, that's so powerful, you know, because you can speak into these people's lives, and let them know. I mean, you are happily married, right? She ain't about to, murder you when you leave the room. Right.
But no, man, no, she's the that's my heart there, man. This love wifey.
Okay. And how long?
Man, we're going coming up on 12 years, man, in March. And we got an interesting origin story as well. But yeah, no, man, woman of faith. Man, I love her to death. Beautiful. I mean, to date, I don't even want to say the smartest woman I've met, man. She's one of the smartest people I've met. And man, just true partner, true friend, yeah. And but yeah, like you mentioned, in the faith, man. So I think to your point, and that's one of the things you could just feel it because culture. I'm a little older. I'm 45, and it's just interesting to see how you know in my 20s marriage was sort of coveted. Even I wasn't a choir boy by any means. I ain't really grow up in church like that. But even beyond that, even if you weren't in church, marriage still was celebrated and coveted, you know what I mean, by both sides, even men, right? You knew there was a day you was gonna hang up your cleats. You know what I mean, get married. That was out there. But now it's like, to your point, I mean, you turn on social media and of course, it's not indicative of a whole, but the loudest voices tend to dominate. And like, I mean, like the guys, I'm like, man, you really think like that, bro? Like it be tripping me out engaging online. Like they really don't want to get married, which and not only that, they're wanting to redictate the terms that have been societal norms forever. Right. And then now, and part of what I'm seeing with a lot of my writing is restoring hope in women because the impact of that is that a lot of women just don't believe it could happen for them no more. Right, which is sad and a travesty in and of itself.
Well, with that, let's go ahead and get into it. So, what you sent me, I mean, it's called. I'm guessing it's called The First Date, or is it just
Yeah, it's first date. It's the story, first date.
okay? First Date. So, you sent me that first. It was out on what Threads? Or was it? X? I can't, because they got all these, forms. And so you said, okay, that's what I thought it was Threads. And I checked it out. You had a lot of people loving on it. And I think what was really great about it, I thought you did a really good job of showcasing a little bit of the hesitancy, the worry, that people have when they're on these first dates. Because it was from a woman's perspective for the people at home. It is more from a woman's perspective, so it's not first person per se, but at least it felt a little bit more. Or was it first person? I can't remember exactly, but I remember. Yeah, yeah. But I remember that as she was going through, we really were in her head, kind of understanding, how she felt, about everything. And but I mean, the one thing I definitely got to ask you about her character, but I liked the fact that, as they were going through each part of the date, you were able to see a little bit of her reactions, of her concerns, even how she was kind of feeling, even beforehand a little bit, because it was kind of like a little bit of what they call exposition at the beginning, to try to get us in the flow of her energy before she even started the date. Right. So what was your, like I say, main goal? How did you feel? How did you get in that head, in order to, write?
Well, first and foremost, like I said, my forte, all the stuff I've written on the narrative side, has been relationships and unpacking really Christian relationships. Believe it or not, and I didn't really get into the specifics of some of my film work, but I've done 5 short films to date. One of which my first, they say write what you know, so I write out of my own experiences. So, all of my short films prior to this have all been male protagonists through, male voice, right? And I would love to kind of explore and unpack, the realities of dating as a Christian, right? And how we can find God. A lot of my stories tend to be people finding God through relationships. So the protagonist may not even be a Christian, but by the end he is, right? But in this story, like I wanted to kind of take a step back because I knew that's writing screenplays where you're a little bit limited is more of a visual medium. So you can't really get into the head as much, right? It's not impossible, but you can't explore it like you can with a short story in fiction, right? So I was like, well, let me try it. And then most importantly, let me do it through a female lens, which I've not had much experience in. And surprisingly enough, it's been landing, which is like ladies are going crazy over this, right? But yeah, but I really wanted to really, because as I've had conversations about it, we've never seen a story of two Christians going on a date before. You know what I'm saying? Like it's two Christians, they both love God, but they're on this first date. How does that look? Right. And that was really one of the driving things for me. It's like, man, like, how can I show her excitement for the date, but let it be rooted in realism in that, most Christian women know they're already operating at a disadvantage, right? Because the likelihood of finding somebody in their church is rare. Most of the men there are married, right? And then out of the pool that's there is even a smaller pool that they will consider. So, so you just, then they, I know you talk about church hopping and just having to put yourself out there to even meet more people, right? So I wanted to explore all of that, like all of her thoughts before going on this date, and then of course her thoughts as things progress, debunking some of her myths on what she believes a Christian man is, right? So that's what was a lot what I was kind of exploring, in the story.
Yeah, because that was the part I was gonna get to. Because I ain't gonna lie, maybe because 'cause I'm a man and I was reading it, I was like, "Why she always saying something negative? She keep thinking negative. I like, get her brother a chance."
Right.
But no, overall, I thought you did a really good job with it. And like I said, as I read through, she was coming more and more out of her, still feeling more comfortable, I think, as the night went on. At least that's how I felt.
Right. And that,
And
and right, like that's one of the things, as a writer, you don't want to rush to the end, right? Like I knew I was gonna get to the point of comfort, right? But you want the more bumpy of a ride it is before we get to that resolution of experience it is oftentimes for those reading or watching if it's a film.
yeah, and honestly, to me, I think that, because I think this will be considered more, I think me and you had talked on the phone about this a while back, but I think this would be considered more sweet romance. And I've always wanted to write a little bit more sweet romance because I generally write five. And fantasy, that's really been, what I've written when I've written books. But I liked how you set it up. And that's why I say it kind of makes me jealous a little bit. And I probably will want to read it a little bit more to kind of grab a little bit of your style. Because I thought you did such a good job in the way that you placed your words and your sentences and different things like that. And I'll be honest, I don't think I've mastered that. I've done so many screenplays that a lot of people tell me, that my books read like screenplays instead of read like books.
Right, that's what the thing about the threads at when I unpack this, I was able to connect with some writers and they gave me tips, right? So I'm a screenwriter. I got the same problem. They're like, wait, you got to get in her head even more. I'm like, what? Like, I guess so. I was, the thread. I was. This was a bit of an experimentation. So when you actually look at, I'm relaunching the story in the newsletter, and it has a lot more depth. We're in her head even more, right? And like I said, for men, it's gonna give you some insight into how women think, and then for women, they're gonna be like, man, this guy, I trust this story because she really sounds like a lot of Christian women, right? And that was the main thing I was trying to make sure when I got in her head that she was extremely relatable, to women, right?
Yeah, I actually thought you did a good job with that, and, also as a person that has written inside of a female head, I know it sounds really crazy for some of the people that's watching, but when you're a man and you write as a woman, you now have to think different, for the people at home, you really do have to think differently. And, even things like security, how a woman, how secure she is, how comfortable she is about certain situations where men, we wouldn't think that way. But a woman can come into a room where she's a little uncomfortable and be much quicker to leave than a man would be, just simply because of our physical prowess and the ability for us to kind of handle ourselves a little bit differently. So it is a little bit more difficult, just for the men at home, when you are writing from a woman's perspective and you're trying to get to that side of yourself that will allow yourself to do that. So, like I say, for me, I was very impressed, by how you handled it. And, to understand, like I say, that dynamic between, feminine and masculine. But that being said, let's talk a little bit about this article, which I think in some ways goes into the essence of, your story, so you have this article out here and, man, what's up with that? I mean, you kind of beating up on the Christian men. I mean, you may okay. You say we ain't but two types in there. Now you said I wasn't supposed to judge you by the article, but I can't help but to judge because you saying either we weird and we like, did you know that Jesus loves you? Did you know how much he cares? Or we like, yo, baby. So what's up with you? You got some vibe? What we doing tonight? It's like we ain't got nobody in the middle.
Right. So, and it's interesting. I've been having a lot of conversations about it just for those, and hopefully, your listeners will go check it out. Wrote this article called Dating in Church, the awkward guy versus the church playboy, right? So admittedly, it's a generalization, and one of the things I really applaud about that your platform, right, is that, you tend pick, you say people tend to lean on their preferences and they present them as the truth, right? Which, and, in listening to you for over a year now, I think that's very wise, right? Because where else are most people going to get advice from? They're going to give it through their experience, which is great, right? Give us your perspective, but don't present it in a way that it's the ultimate truth, right? It's always, and we know this even more as a writer, right? Like there's no such thing as something that's unbiased. Even a documentary is biased, right? It's edited to somebody wants you to think a certain way by the end, right? So I said all that to say, for me, I was kind of having fun with the article. You know what I mean? It's more like, okay, and my dad, at my core, writing is in my blood. My dad was a journalist for a historic newspaper out of New York, Amsterdam News, African American newspaper. He wrote there for 30 years as a beat writer. So in my blood, I consider myself like a reporter, right? And then so I took all, I've been in the church since 2002, right? I didn't grow up in the church. And, in my experience, I've seen, when I got saved in 2002, the church I was going to was about 50 people, 60 people on first Sunday. You know what I'm saying? To the mid-sized church I kind of go to now, where we're about 3 to 500. I got friends in different mega churches. So, I have a vast perspective on how relationships look, and they look different in different contexts, right? So I needed to couch, the Christian dating male landscape, you know, in two extremes, but I did mention in that there's a spectrum, right? Right. So I'm worried. No, so there is a spectrum. I'll create a reflamer, right? So, does the church playboy exist? Right? Like, yeah, like and I mean, to be honest, like, I'm not friends with the guy. Like, I know the types, right? But it's amazing to hear the stories from women. I'm like, wait, he did what? Wow. You know what I mean? Because for me, I didn't grow up in church. I was wild when I wasn't saved, right? So, like, when I got saved, I was more like, I didn't really want to date, like, because dating to me was always kind of like sampling. You know what I mean? Like, I was like, I need to find somebody who get enough information about them and then Imma just go at her, you know what I mean? And she gonna be my wife. My wife can attest to that, right? But so once I got saved, I really was focusing on kinda backing out, taming a lot of the stuff that I had bad habits I had learned as an unsaved man, right? But there's a lot of guys who come up in church, right? And they don't mind running through the church. Like, so there's that guy, right? And then there's the church awkward guy, right? Where, a lot of those guys are kind of, like as a young adult leader, you know what I mean? Like they were kind of placed under my care in that ministry lead. To people I'm friends with, right? It's just this guy who he's a little, like he ain't all, like he don't got the swag. Like he's a little nervous around women. He doesn't have all the confidence, right? Right. So I was like, okay, these are the two extremes, and I'm gonna use that to kind of have this discussion, right, about lady frustration with the dating pool. But admittedly, there is a spectrum. I was having a little fun with the article, no, in the article. Yeah, I wanted to couch that, right, to the two extremes, and can a guy be in the middle? Of course, right? Can he have a little bit of both? Can he lean more on one side than the other? Right, right. And then, of course, the article also gives practical advice, not only for ladies, but those two guys specifically, right? So it's trying to have fun, but also keep a balance in the article about the dating landscape from a woman's perspective, right?
Mhm. So, I mean, how do you feel though, I guess, with that, seeing that, at least a little bit of that, can you give people a little bit of advice? I know the article has some, but just off the, top of your head, of what can, like I say, for a man that's out there, he's trying to find him a good Christian woman, what are some of the things that he can do, whether I don't know where he is in the spectrum, but just, some of the things that he can do in order to, get him a woman?
Absolutely. Well, I mean, first and foremost, man, I'm a big personal growth guy. I know you kind of um attest to this as well, right? Like, you got to work on you. At the end of the day, it's my biggest advice. My 12-year OG kind of advice is that you really got to prepare yourself. I think a lot of attention and focus gets is put on what this other person has, right? Which is great. You know what I'm saying? Like you want to have a certain set of standards, but like, for me, it's like, yo, you got to work on you. Like, how are you? Like, for a man, let's first start with, your passion. Like, what are you passionate about in life, right? Women love passion, you know what I'm saying? Like, and regard, contrary to popular belief, like women ain't looking for, the modern woman isn't, she doesn't lead with looking for a man to take care of her, right? But do you need to be employable? Should you have a vision financially for yourself, right? And then a family, you should, right? And that vision needs to, involve some type of independence. Not saying that you can't work, right? But you got to get your money in order. You're saving, you're investing, you're side hustling. At a minimum, I don't believe entrepreneurship is for everybody. Some people you're gonna need to work, right? But you know what I mean? Like you need to have, you know, another stream of income, in between times if which is the inevitable, right? There's not a job we're gonna have forever. There's not a business that you have that's always gonna be on top. So you gotta have multiple streams there, right? So first advice to men is, get your passion right, get your money right. You know what I'm saying? If you're looking for a wife, because that's gonna come around like when you start building a family and trying to build with the woman, like you want to have that. And then personally, you want to get you right, right? Get your health right, get your nutrition right. Get in the gym. You ain't gotta be a bodybuilder, but you like your general health needs to be in order. You know what I'm saying? Like that's not only gonna, impact your sexual energy, maybe performance. You know what I mean? That's not even gonna expect your attractive, I mean, be like, cause in spiritual in spiritual environments, oftentimes I think I mentioned this in the article, like we tend to make the spirituality the only thing, right? Like, I'm on Threads, the Threads app a lot now, and you see these dear future husband, I want a man that pray with me. And I'm like, oh, that's all that's good. I want a man that leads me to Jesus. All that is good, right? Right? Like, don't get me wrong. Praise, devotion, Bible study, all of that, right? But you got to get to the practical, right? Because like, if that man's not attracted to you, at some point you're not gonna be. You don't care if he know the scripture. You know what I'm saying? Like so, like in that, you know, especially early on. Like, so when I'm talking to guys, like man, you got to work on your general attractiveness. Like should women may be attracted to, the bad boy or whatever guy for a reason. The same way we're attracted to the attractive woman. Like I know as a Christian man not be good with her, but is she attractive to me? Yes. You know what I'm saying? Like I can't deny that. You know what I mean? And so, but in spirit, a lot of Christian guys tend to say, I'm gonna just get in this word. I'm like, now you got to get in this gym. You know what I'm saying? Like you can read up on style, get with your female cousin, a sister, somebody help you with how to style yourself or your body. All of those things are important, when preparing yourself for dating, because like I said, there's a, at some point as a man, like you're setting yourself up to compete, like you're competing. Like it's not. I know we don't like to look at it that way, but how do you fit in the competitive landscape? And you just got to be attractive on multiple fronts.